Mr. Damasco.
Present.
Mr. Carriage, I understand, is not going to be here, nor is Mr. Peterson. Mr. Shemanek,
Present.
Mr. St. Marie,
Present.
Mr. Van,
Here.
and Mr. Woods.
Here.
Okay, if we could put in front of the commission proposal for myself to be the president pro tem for this meeting, we could have a vote on that, that'd be appreciated.
I'll make the motion to make Mr. Schmack the head of this meeting.
And I'll second.
Yeah. Second, you got it, we got it.
Thank you.
All right, roll call vote on that.
Mr. Damasco,
Here.
Mr. St. Marie,
Here?
Mr. Van,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
and Mr. Shemanek.
Yes. All right, we have some business items to go over.
Please use their microphone so we make sure the green lights are on. Thank you.
Okay.
A few business items to go over tonight. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 15th, 2019.
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Very good. There be a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. For the purpose of the public hearings tonight that we have, I am going to turn this over to our counsel in order for her to take care of that.
Okay, good evening to everyone present. The CDC does have 3 public hearings scheduled for tonight. For purposes of each of the public hearings, all of the testimony will be provided under oath, and at every hearing there will be an opportunity for the public to offer testimony and to comment on the presentations that are being made this evening. Following the public hearing on each of the individual matters will be closed, and the board itself would then commence deliberations on the application that's before them this evening. Everyone in the public is invited to listen to the deliberations, but there at that point won't be any opportunity for any more public comment during the deliberative process. The state statute requires a vote by a majority of the members of the Community Development Commission on those matters that are referred to the City Council for approval, and for which the matters the Community Development Committee makes the final decision. As to each of the presentations this evening, staff will be asked to provide a general description of the proposal, followed by their analysis of the proposal. Each applicant tonight, when your case is called, will then be provided the opportunity to give specific evidence to demonstrate that the proposal that's before the Commission tonight meets the standards of approval for the request. In each instance, the burden is on the applicant to prove the case. With respect to other members of the public tonight who wish to speak, you may give an opinion or present specific evidence as to why you believe the application meets or fails to meet the standards that are set forth for each of the requests. The Commission does adhere to the schedule prepared for tonight's meeting. In the case of an applicant or an event, you or your attorney have filed an appearance as an objector, you'll be afforded sufficient time to make your presentation and to present any evidence you believe necessary in support of the application. Whether you're a member of the public wishing to make a statement for the record or a witness testifying on behalf of the applicant, you will be placed under oath by our secretary this evening, and we would ask that you begin that process by stating your name and providing your address. Also, spelling your name is helpful for our secretary for purposes of minutes. If you're not presenting any evidence on behalf of the applicant or an objector, your remarks will be taken after the applicant and all those who filed an appearance either as an objector or someone in support of the application. You'll be subject to a question by the Community Development Commission and by the applicant should you choose to make a presentation this evening. To allow as many people as possible to be heard on any one application. If you're not an applicant or someone who has filed an objection to the application, the CDC would ask that you would limit your remarks to 5 minutes each. If someone in front of you has said something that is identical to what you'd like to say, you can say you agree with their testimony. You don't have to feel as if you have to repeat that. If additional time is necessary for any one of these applications, the hearing can be continued until the next available hearing date. So starting with this, the first public hearing on the agenda is case number 2019 CBC 05. In this application, Brian and Amber Murphy are requesting a special use and major site plan review to permit the operation of an Allstate insurance agency. The subject property is a tenant unit at 130 East Irving Park Road, whose PIN number, the permanent identification number, is 0315107020, located at the Wooddale Depot Shopping Center at 120 through 158 East Irving Park Road. Wooddale Depot Center LLC is the owner of the property. Will the staff now please provide the summary of the request and provide information relative to the notice that's been given at this public hearing this evening. And you, of course, will be placed under oath.
Would you raise your right hand, please? State your name and address.
Gosha Pocheha, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. Yes, the public notice for this petition was published in Daily Herald on May 3rd, 2019. Certificate of publication is on file with our department, and also notices were mailed to property owners within 300 feet of the subject site. So this is just a location map of our subject site. It is part of the Wooddale Depot Center, which is a shopping center located near the Irving Park and Wooddale Road intersection. And we can see that the Unit 130 is the one that's highlighted in red, and it's the one actually facing Irving Park Road. This is just a look at the zoning map. The subject site is located in our TCB Town Center Business Zoning District. And looking at the existing conditions, the site is approximately 2.17 acres in size. It does contain 2 buildings with approximately 17 tenant spaces. The addresses range from 120 to 158 East Irving Park. The site is also improved with a parking lot. There's 125 parking spaces. 5 of them are handicap accessible. And per the code requirements that actually, the ordinance that granted approval for the shopping center owner, only 112 parking spaces are required, so the site has sufficient parking. In terms of the compliance with the comprehensive plan, the site is designated as retail commercial on the future land use plan in our comprehensive plan. And that particular use category includes a wide range of retail, restaurants, personal and business use services, but it also specifically includes small office and hotels. So the particular proposal for a special use for an Allstate insurance agency is intended to help the city achieve goal number 4, objective 2, which is to keep Wooddale diverse by managing development and creating a balanced mix of uses, essentially providing greater choice of businesses and services that are available to the community. Looking at the compliance with the UDO, the Town Center Business District allows uses that are specialty retail, civic, entertainment, and service uses. However, any use that engages in finance, insurance, or real estate services does require a special use, and that's the main reason for for this petition in front of us at the moment. Looking further into the UDO requirements, the lot development standards, there are no physical changes proposed to the building or the parking lot. Building type 9 standards apply to this building. There are a couple standards that are not being met with the current regulations, and that's the front build-to line and rear setback. However, we do have a record of the original ordinance from 1989 where a special use and planned unit development were approved for that particular site with the current layout of the building. And having said that, city staff recommends that the CDC Commission approve the special use request for an insurance agency at the 130 East Irving Park, the tenant space, as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the UDO, and it meets the standards for special use and site plan review. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for Ms. Pochika? Is there a representative of the applicant present tonight?
Yes.
Sir, could you please approach the podium and state your name, spell your name, please, and provide podium over there, and provide information relative to your association with the applicant?
Absolutely.
Would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
That's Brian Murphy. It's Brian Murphy. It's 130 East Irving Park Road in Wooddale.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So help you God.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Brian Murphy. My wife Amber Murphy would join us today, but we have 4 children, and all 4 children have sports and activities today, so she is busy running around with them. We are here seeking a special use permit for our office right down the road here in Wooddale on Irving Park Road. We currently have an insurance agency in Roselle. We've been there for about 5 years, and this location will actually be our second location that we're looking to open. Part of the reason that we chose Wooddale is it's close to home. We live in Roselle currently, and that's where our current office is, so it's just right down the road from us. We do find that we have a lot of customers that we talk to on the phone that are in Wooddale, so we want to come a little bit closer to our current customers also. That way, if anyone wants to come in, make any kind of payments, sit down, have a cup of coffee, whatever the case may be, like they currently do in Roselle, we chose to come out this way. Very seldomly will you have a customer come in. A lot of the business that we do is over the phone. So I know with parking, it won't be very strenuous. You know, maybe one customer at a time will come in once a week, and it's usually a very fast visit, no more than an hour. So really the parking we won't be using a lot of parking over there. As far as the construction to it, we're not looking to make any kind of changes to the building inside or out. Really, we're just looking to move in some desks and get some nice carpet and paint in there and put up the Good Hands logo of the Allstate sign out there and bring Allstate insurance to Wooddale, very close to here. A big part, too, of Amber and I's reasoning to want to come to Wooddale is we're very big in our community in Roselle, and I know Wooddale's got a very good community and does a lot of special things, and we really like to be a part of that. We are part of the Taste of Roselle, where we're at right now, so we'd like to come and do the fest in Wooddale, and all the sports teams, we sponsor a lot of them, the football teams and baseball teams, we sponsor the fields. Obviously, with having 4 children, we know how important it is to have good equipment and fields and things like that for the kids. So any way that we can get back as a business to the communities that we're in, we definitely try to do that. So I would greatly appreciate it if you guys would consider us. We'd love to be here in Wooddale, and hopefully we can see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for Mr. Murphy? Is there any member of the public present this evening who would wish to make a comment on the application that's currently before the commission? Okay. Seeing no member of the public who is present who would like to comment on this, it's your opportunity, Mr. Murphy, if you want to make any other comment. Otherwise, your presentation can be closed.
That is all. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and have a great day.
Thank you.
You too.
There being no additional testimony to come before the Community Development Commission, I would now ask the chairman to close the public hearing for case number 2019 CDC 05.
We'll now proceed into the deliberation of the merits of this request. Any questions and deliberations that you folks have regarding it? No? All right. There being no further discussion, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
And in making the motion to approve, the staff has made the recommendation to you that the request for special use and major site plan review does meet the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance and is consistent with the city's plan. They recommend on page 7 the appropriate motion to be made. So Mr. Woods, if you were the maker of the motion, would you adopt that as your motion?
Let me get the page up.
Page 7?
Based on the submitted petition and testimony presented, the proposal, special use, and major site plan review meets the standards of the approval and consistent with the UDO and comprehensive plan. And therefore, I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of the fact included within the staff memo, is the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend the City Council approve of case number 2019-CDC-05. That's my motion.
Very good. There be a motion to recommend and second made. Will the secretary please call roll?
Mr. Damasco?
Floor.
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek?
Yes.
Mr. St. Marie?
Yes.
Mr. Vant?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
The motion to recommend proposed special use and major plan review of 130 East Irving Park Road carries.
Staff will talk to Mr. Murphy about the status now of the proposal.
Wonderful. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. Good luck, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Okay, we'll now turn, the CDC will now turn to the second hearing before it this evening, case number 2019 CDC 06, which is in regard to an application for a special use, plan unit development, and major site plan review for expansion of the parking lot for Oak Brook Elementary School at 170 South Wooddale Road in Wooddale, Illinois. And again, I would call on staff to provide a summary of the request and to indicate when notice of the hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication this evening.
Thank you. The notice similarly was published on May 3rd, 2019 in Daily Herald. We do have certificate of publication on file. Also, notices were mailed to property owners within 300 feet of the subject site. This proposal is for Oak Brook Elementary School, which is located at 170 South Wooddale Road. The specific request is for an extension of existing parking lot. And we're looking at a location map on this slide. The next slide actually shows us the zoning map. The subject site is zoned R1, which is estate residential, and it is mainly surrounded by residential properties around it and a forest preserve to the west. This is just a look at the existing conditions. The site is approximately 5.2 acres in size. It does consist 3 individual parcels that are one main one and 2 smaller ones along Wooddale Road. The site is improved with the school building, which is a brick building. There's also a sports court, outdoor playground, and a parking lot to the south of the school. This is just a photograph showing the existing conditions. This is where the parking lot extension is being proposed. As we see, there are some cars parked in that improved surface. That part will be actually taken out, and that's where the new parking lot will be constructed. Looking at the site plan of the existing conditions, we see that the area that actually has the crosshatch, that's what will be removed and where the new parking lot will be constructed. So we have an existing parking lot that will remain. That particular parking lot is located only 4.75 feet away from the south property line, which is a residential line. However, that is to remain. There are no plans to reconfigure the parking lot, that portion of the parking lot. We do have, this is the existing hardscape area that will be replaced. And then we also have the existing trash enclosure that's currently located at the end of the existing parking lot. It will be removed and relocated to a different area. And this is just a photograph of what the existing enclosure looks like. The proposed parking lot extension, let's see if we can, actually meets the existing 4.75-foot setback because it's a continuation of the same drive aisle. Then it does increase slightly to 7.75 feet, just to provide a little bit of a greater separation. There will be a bioswale at the end of the parking lot for the stormwater detention. And then we also have the proposed trash enclosure that it's located further away from the public view. One thing I did want to point out at this point is the applicant is actually requesting a deviation of the required setback from residential properties. The property on the south is zoned residential. Our code does require a 20-foot setback. However, the applicant is seeking a deviation to be allowed to have the 4.75-foot and 7.75-foot setback. There are a few reasons. Mainly, they do want to meet the drive aisle. So in order to avoid a turn or a jog in the drive aisle, they wanted to kind of keep the similar setback. They also, looking at the number of parking spaces they're able to provide, if they were to meet the 20-foot setback from the south property line, the number of parking spaces that they're able to provide would be significantly smaller. Here is a look at the parking stall summary. And we can see that in the first table, the existing number of parking spaces that are provided is 45. The proposed parking lot expansion will be able to provide a total of 82 parking spaces. So it's a significant increase. The vehicle stocking summary is also significant. So this is mainly for parents dropping off or picking up their children from school. Currently, 18 spaces are provided. The proposal calls for a total of 43 parking spaces. Few of the reasons for the request for the parking lot extension and for the improved stacking is that the school would like to be able to accommodate more community and school events. So that's why they wanted to provide a little bit more parking for the school visitors and patrons and actual parents, sorry. And the stacking is also significant because reportedly school staff has noticed a number of vehicles backing up on Wooddale Road. So the addition of the going from 18 to 43 vehicles to be able to stack on site without blocking Wooddale Road is also one of the reasons for the proposed parking lot extension and the existing the configuration that is being proposed. This slide looks at the landscaping that is being proposed. As we can see, the landscaping that will be added on site is mainly along the property line. It consists of evergreens and shrubs that will be at least 6 to 8 feet in height, so it is meant to provide screening. There is a number of existing vegetation there, so the intent of the applicant is to kind of fill in all the gaps to make it 100% screening because they're not able to meet that 20-foot setback that's required between residential properties. There are a couple deviations that are being sought as part of this PUD request. In terms of landscaping, the first one is the landscape islands. Typically, there's a requirement for interior landscaping islands in the parking lot. However, the applicant would like to maintain a similar appearance of the existing parking lot and just continue it without having to install the parking lot islands, mainly because it would significantly reduce the number of parking spaces they can provide. There's also requests for elimination of the landscape screen around the trash enclosure. It will be located further away from public view, and it will be screened by a fence. So the request here is just for elimination of the landscape screening. And also of note is that the bioswale that's right to the south of it will have some of a native vegetation as well. And the third deviation is for elimination of shade trees in the perimeter landscaping along the property line. As I mentioned, there's a number of existing trees There's some vegetation on the property line and also a number of vegetation trees on the site in general. But the main one is there are overhead utilities. So the applicant is seeking a deviation not to have to put shade trees in that particular perimeter. Moving on to the compliance with the UDO, in terms of allowable uses, the property is zoned R1, which is our estate residential, and typically schools require a special use in that particular zoning district. The school was built in somewhere in 1950s, but it was built prior to the 1966 zoning ordinance, and based on our records, that was the first time a special use for schools was required. Because the school was built prior to that, we don't have a record of a special use ever being granted for this property. So as part of today's petition, the applicant is requesting a special use to be able to continue to operate the site as an elementary school. In terms of lot development standards, obviously it's located in a residential district. However, and I apologize, I think I'm on a different slide here. So for the lot development standards, the applicant is requesting to use the building type 9 standards. Typically for a residential district, type 1 would be applicable, but obviously this isn't a residential use. The type 9 building typology, there is no lot coverage standard. The proposed improvements do increase the lot coverage, I believe, up to 43%, which would be a little bit over the residential zoning requirements. However, I did want to mention stormwater. Stormwater is a separate requirement from the lot coverage, which is under zoning. Our engineer has reviewed the proposal, and there will be stormwater management provided on site via the bioswale. However, the total square footage of the improvements does not trigger detention requirements. So our engineer has reviewed it, and there's sort of like a conditional comment that if there were ever any projects to be done in the future that increase the total impervious surface, then a detention system would have to be provided on site. But based on the total size of the improvements and the total lot, at this point, detention is not required. I do want to go back, actually, I'm sorry, I think I skipped the comprehensive plan. The site is designated as a civic institutional on our future land use plan, and we do believe that it is, this project is in compliance with the comprehensive plan, as it helps to meet goal 2, objective 3, which is essentially to improve community services, and that would be by providing better services to the visitors and the public, and for school and community events. In terms of findings, I did mention our city engineer has reviewed the project. We've also had the Public Works, the city planner, and the fire district review the proposals, and all of them were able to approve the project for the final development stage, which is required for the PUD. Obviously, there will be further review once we get into the building permitting process. And in terms of recommendations, staff does recommend that the CDC petition approve this request for special use and planned unit development and major site plan review, as we find it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the UDO and meets the required standards. Thank you.
And staff, for members of the CDC, the staff findings relative to all the standards that you need to make relative to special use, the criteria for planned unit development, and site plan review are found within your packet on pages 6 through 13. So you do have information from staff in addition to what has been testified here to this evening. At this time, does any member of the CDC have any questions of staff relative to the testimony this evening, or is what is set through in staff report? Is there a representative of the applicant with us here this evening? Could you you please approach the podium, state your name, spell your name, and provide information relative to your association with the applicant?
Would you raise your right hand, please, and state your name and address?
My name is Mark Siwick, S-I-W-I-K. Address is 569 Rose Lane in Bartlett, Illinois.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. I'm Mark, I'm the project manager of Representative Leggett Architects. The district has hired Leggett Architects to do this plan for them and the expansion of their parking lot. We've done other work in the district too. So this one is a little different because it is under the zoning review right now, and we're just presenting it to you that we'd like to, as Gosha, I think, nailed it all the way, what we'd like to do is expand the parking lot for future events. One of the big things we noticed, and of course I think you all noticed, is the stacking on Wooddale Road is quite difficult to get around that parking lot right now. They try to have us avoid coming in the morning and afternoon because it's very difficult, and I think this is going to alleviate a lot of those issues. The landscaping is an issue, I understand, but you have the forest preserve behind it. It's a well-wooded lot right now. We're only moving back further away from the street, and I think it's what we're going to do with the screening of the side on the south property is really going to help out. Otherwise, I think I don't know if you guys and anybody else in the school district, but I think it's going to be it's going to be good for the community and also the school district, students and staff and parents to have a little bit bigger parking lot to get around.
Is there anyone else present for the applicant who would like to make comments relative to this application? Yeah, I was just gonna,
Okay,
are you here with the applicant?
Yeah, with school district.
Sure. Yeah.
And would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
John Corbett, 123 South Kyler, Oak Park, Illinois.
123, Kyler?
Yeah, Kyler.
Thank you.
Are you gonna put him under?
You good?
Now that I know who you are.
Okay.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I'd just like to make I'm the superintendent in the school district, and I would just like to make an additional comment that, and many people have kids, and you see faces here who've either had children in the school or people in their families who work there or have gone to school there. The big issue is more and more people drive is that we can't fit enough cars in the parking lot, and for evening events we always have to have people park up on Murray Drive, and that still happens during the school day. Even oftentimes when I go there, the parking lot's full and I have to park on Murray Drive. So there are some safety considerations as well, and we do work really closely with the 190 building. In fact, we spoke to them a couple times, some residents there, about building the evergreen wall and whatnot. So I just think it's a really good thing for the families and residents. And it's also a huge safety concern for children. So I'd like the people to keep that in mind as well. So thank you.
Does any member of the CDC have a question for either the representatives of the applicant? Does any member of the public have any questions for the representatives of the applicant? I see you with your hand up. If you'd go over to the podium and allow yourself to be sworn under oath.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address.
Shirley Marino Klitsch. I live in the 190 South Wooddale Road building, which is right next door to this project.
Your last name again, please, Marino.
It's a hyphenated name, Marino-Klich.
Thank you.
I hate to admit it, but I have no idea what this is. The presentation was so long, I glazed over. Looking at the graphs, I'm usually very good at map reading and graphs and charts. I understand the little drawings, but you lost me on even what side of the building this is adjacent to as far as properties. Like, where is the 190 building? Where is the trailer park? Where are the townhouses? And as she was describing and talking about it, I was losing track of what was where. From what I see from living over there, it sounds to me like the school's area for parking wants to come south onto the hill, the berm, that is on the 190 property. Okay, see? You lost me somewhere there, and then I saw the property in the back, on the west side of the property, that is forest preserve, according to the description, and I was wondering why they didn't go that way, or is that where they're going?
I don't know if I may, so this is, if you would follow the screen, I'm moving the cursor. So this is Wooddale Road, this is the existing parking lot, and this is where the addition will happen. So it is to the west, it is more, that is correct. My understanding is that, yes, so the playground has already relocated within the last few years to the north. So as of right now, it's just an empty space right now, and there's some improved, I think it used to be maybe like a basketball court that will be removed. So the actual extent of the parking lot will be right there. And I believe the building you're referencing, there's some townhomes right there, and this is the multifamily building to the south.
Okay, I saw that in the letter that you sent, but when you did not, something got lost in the translation when you went to the graphs.
Gotcha,
And
I
I didn't see
apologize.
the property lines. And I heard the word south and I heard the word west, but without the pictures and this picture, I lost track of what you were saying.
And I apologize, and I'll be sure next time we'll a little bit more descriptive on our graphics, so they're
Okay.
clear. I apologize
So
for that.
there's no taking of the property that the 190 building and the townhouses are on?
No.
Okay, so it's just redoing your property? Okay. Do they have any intentions to go back in the forest preserve area, or you can't?
So the blacktop where the kids
Sure, I
play.
think if you're gonna, if you are gonna say anything for purposes of people who are gonna be watching it later, you have to go closer to the podium.
Sure.
Oh,
It's just like Gosha pointed out, it's a blacktop where the children play already, and we'll go back just a little bit further. That's it.
okay, so there's nothing on the other side, where the Oak Brook Elementary words are in west?
No.
Okay, that's where I got
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah. It's basically all the blacktop area where the children play and have gym class already.
Mhm.
It's going to be converted into parking lot, and then we're going to go back a little bit further.
Mhm. And
Okay?
even though you have those 35 spaces, you're still gonna have that line of cars going through, that little train
Yeah.
that goes through
Yeah.
there. You're still gonna have that, I know
Right.
that. Okay. All right, that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for the resident?
I don't think so.
I have a comment.
Wait a minute, George has a
I have
comment.
a comment.
Yes, sir.
I live on East Murray. And depending on what time of day it is, if my wife and I are going to go somewhere, we have to adjust our route because going to Murray and Wooddale Road is bad. So then we tried Spring Oaks, which is the street south of there, which is bad. So now we go up to Montrose and around. During the day, just with the staff at that school, that parking lot is full. If there's a special event in the evening for children, Murray Drive, Spring Oaks, up to the cabin parking lot is loaded with cars. They need more parking. And when I first saw this, I said, you know, this is good. This is good. The poor crossing guard there, she has her hands full, let me tell you. And that's why they station a police officer out there every morning. And to kind of help her with the children. But yeah, it gets quite scary. It's a lot of traffic, especially now you throw in a dozen school buses pulling in and out. I mean, but in my opinion, it's definitely needed. And I'll leave the rest up to Gosha.
There being no other member of the public wishing to comment, this is the opportunity. If the applicant has any additional comment you'd like to make, you could please make it. Otherwise, we'll close this public hearing. Okay, hearing no other testimony, would you like to take over and close the public hearing?
Yes. Having no additional testimony, I'll now close the public hearing for case number 2019-CDC-06. We'll now proceed into the deliberation of the merits of this request. Any further discussion regarding this from the commission? Okay. There being no further discussion, I'm looking for a motion. A suggested motion is provided within our memo.
On page 14 of the staff memo, there is a recommended motion.
I'll be happy to make the motion if no one else will. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed special use planned unit development and major site plan review meets the standards of approval and is consistent with the UDO and comprehensive plan. And therefore, I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo as the findings of the Community Development Commission and recommend to the City Council approval of case number 2019-CDC-06 with the following conditions. Number one, the special use. Planned unit development and major site plan review shall substantially conform to the staff memo dated May 20th, 2019, and the attached exhibits, except as such plans may be modified to meet city code requirements. Where deviations to the codes have not been requested as part of this approval, the existing codes must be met as applicable at the time of the permit application. Number two, a note to title shall be recorded to identify the existence of the Stormwater Best Management Practices, BMP.
We need a second.
Second.
Chairman, I move to recuse myself from the vote on this.
As a member of the school board, you will not be participating in this vote.
I'm sorry, who was that?
As a member of the school board, you won't be participating in the vote.
You. Okay, thank you.
All right, there being a motion to recommend approval and a second made, would the secretary please call the roll? As a
Mr.
reminder, a yes vote will be to recommend approval, and a no vote will be to recommend denial.
Mr. Damasco,
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek,
Yes.
Mr. St. Marie,
Yes.
and Mr. Vant.
Yes.
The motion to recommend approval of the proposed special use plan unit development and major site plan review for 170 South Wooddale Road carries.
And the representatives of the school board, the staff will be in touch with you to tell you what the process is from this point forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The third and last hearing before the CDC this evening is case number 2019, CDC 01. It is in regard to a request for rezoning, special use, planned unit development, final plat of subdivision, and major site plan review for the redevelopment of Washington Street. This is a continuation of a hearing that was commenced at the April meeting of the CDC. So notice of that hearing was presented at the CDC hearing in April. But we would ask staff at this time to provide a summary of the request once again, and to indicate when notice of the hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication from the newspaper. So we'd like to ask if you could just state your name and your position with the city, and we'll swear you in again on this hearing.
Your right hand and state your name and address, please.
Edmund J. Cage, 204 West Bloomingdale Road, Itasca.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. So, thank you. Yes, as the city attorney had covered, the notice was published for the April meeting. It was continued at that time. The notices were published on the 27th of March, and obviously continued over to the meeting today. What we have in front of us is a request for the redevelopment of Washington Street. So it's an annexation, rezoning, special use, planned unit development, final plat of subdivision, and major site plan review. So what I'm going to attempt to do is kind of go through all the requests. It's a complicated redevelopment because it comes with annexation. If there at any point, I know that we're going to be putting up some slides after I've done my presentation. If we want to jump around with the slides, I'm quite happy to do that because I know that this It's quite a visual to get the property in question in mind. So with that, I will proceed. So I have a number of these different slides, so if there's one that's more legible or clearer, because I know we have a large number of people in the audience, I can go to that section. So the subject property, I got the highlighted here, is surrounded by red. The red denotes the current borders of the city. Obviously, this area to the south is unincorporated DuPage County. The city of Wooddale kind of circles around the subject property, therefore making it amenable to annexation. So zoning of the property to start off with. So obviously the property in question is unincorporated DuPage County. It's residential. I think anyone who's been to the subject property knows that it's essentially a cul-de-sac without the bulb. And there's 20 lots, 10 on each side of the street, south and north of Washington. And approximately about 15 of those properties are built on with a residence or an accessory structure. Obviously, in terms of zoning, this is the city of Wooddale zoning, which is I-1 industrial, light industrial, to the north, to the east, and to the south. And then to the west is a wetland, which is Franson Grove is over somewhat further to the west. There's a wetland area, and there's a wetland buffer required, which has been met by the proposed development. We'll get into that a little bit later. Obviously, the area on the aerial, the unincorporated residential, is further to the south, but important to note that the city of Wooddale does encompass the property on all sides. And then moving forward, actually this one is a little bit clearer in terms of, we zoomed in just to make it clearer so we can see that obviously there's some residences here. There's some lots where there's no residence or accessory structure, another residence. So you can kind of get a flavor. Anyone who's been down the street will know that. But if you haven't, it's obviously a residential neighborhood. And there are some properties that are vacant, owned by, or previously owned by the resident adjacent to it. I did mention the wetland. Obviously, you can see it right here to the west. And there is a required wetland buffer, which we'll get to, which has been met and will be on this side of the property. Obviously, you get the wetland, which is delineated, and then you have the 50-foot buffer. Key things here, 20 platted lots, as I've just mentioned, adjacent to, this is central right here, the kind of north-south. Major street, obviously, through the industrial park, 9.59 acres. So it's a sizable property that is before you this evening. This one is essentially the platted survey existing. I think really there's a lot of things going on there, and really what this does on from an engineer's perspective is just outline all the improvements on the property, including the road with trees, etc. It's a alter land survey, which essentially, if you have one for your residence, you have it just for your own property. This obviously is a much larger scale for the 20 properties that we just mentioned. This is the proposed plat of subdivision, obviously 9.593 acres. What would happen is we would go from, if the proposal was approved and went through the process, we would go through all these individual lots which exist today in unincorporated DuPage County, the Washington Street right-of-way, and they would all be, if approved, they would be kind of merged and formed into one lot for the entire property here. There are some easements that are required, most notably here. There's some right-of-way here that is being dedicated to the city, 7 feet, to make it consistent with some other properties along Central Avenue. And then a stormwater management easement back here, which is both a stormwater management facility to hold water, and to convey the water as well. Obviously, we have a wetland over here, we have the wetland buffer, we have stormwater detention here. And we also, I'll get to the, I know people are interested in seeing what the site plan looks like, and trust me, we will get to that. There's a stormwater management easement up here, which is underground, under a proposed parking lot, and we can revisit that in just a moment. So this is the site plan. Essentially, I'll just highlight, this is the building, 159,000 square feet. Along Central, you have a setback here. The building would jog, obviously, because it's obviously an angled street, Central is. So you have the 159,000 square foot building here. You have two access points, one to the south, which is, the one to the south is predominantly would be for automobiles to access the parking along the south of the building here. There's a drive aisle, and then there's landscaping, which we'll discuss in a minute as well. Parking to the west of the building here. And this is the stormwater management facility here to the west. Going to the north of the building, and I mentioned earlier, we had that stormwater management easement. There's underground stormwater detention along here under the parking lot. These are the loading docks for the proposed building. Obviously, the drive aisle obviously needs to be wider than automobile drive aisle for truck traffic, and landscaping and setback to the north. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I'll kind of go through my presentation. The applicant is here. If there's any more details that you need specific to the application itself, not necessarily code related, I would probably defer that to the applicant. They know, their engineer is here. He can talk to some of the things that I've covered briefly in a lot more detail, and if anyone's interested in kind of the details and the calculations, etc. So with that, a couple of things while we're on this site plan, which I think will be interesting to people. Proposed entrance to the building at the southeast corner, and the other proposed entrance to the building is the southwest. These will be reflected on the elevations that we will see in a few minutes, depending on the slide deck. And I'm trying to think, a couple of other things worth mentioning in regards to the site plan. I mentioned the 7-foot right-of-way along Central Avenue. The proposed plan has a 20-foot greenway landscape buffer. And then there's also a proposed sidewalk along Central Avenue for the entire frontage of the property. Oh, perfect. Moving on to the elevations. And I'll just, these two corners where the entrances were to the southeast and to the southwest are these two elevations here. So I don't have my glasses on, but I will try to do my best. Essentially, this is the, this would be the entrance. This is glass, precast concrete, obviously windows. This would be kind of what would be an office reception area. Obviously, you have the same thing on the other side as well. In terms of the sides of the building, because I'm having a hard time reading it myself, so the north elevation, which is the top right here, is, just going back, would be this side of the building with the building docks. And I apologize for jumping around, but this might be the easiest way to do it. The south elevation of the building here is this elevation right here. So, and then, if I can see it, west elevation, which is this, fairly similar to the east elevation, obviously would be at either end of the building, right here, adjacent to the automobile parking, and here in the front of the building. And we'll get to landscaping in just a minute. I'm going to leave up the site plan so everybody has a chance to digest that. I have a few notes that I need to go through. In terms of the comprehensive plan, there's a number of goals in the recently adopted comprehensive plan, I believe, was August 2018, and I'll just read some of the items in the staff report. Goal 1, connect Wooddale citizens to increased walking and biking amenities. And really, anytime we're looking at a proposed development, redevelopment, we look at how it meets the comprehensive plan, or does not. In this case, the pedestrian sidewalk along Central Avenue would meet that goal. Objective 3, increase opportunities for Wooddale residents to work in Wooddale. Obviously, this is a sizable building, 159,000 square feet. To give people an idea, some of the new industrial buildings kind of north of Old Thorndale or I-390 are kind of in the region of 86 to 100,000 square feet. So this is a large building. Obviously would create and attract high-quality corporate tenants and the jobs that would accompany them. So they would meet that section of the goal and objective of the comprehensive plan. Goal 2, build community capacity. Objective 1, seek opportunities for economic development. This is a property that's not in the city of Wooddale. The request is to annex it. It's just shy of 10 acres. Obviously, business or businesses would go into that building and would provide economic development opportunities to attract new users into the community and employees as well. Perfect. Objective 2, expand job opportunities in the community. I just covered that one. Objective 6 of Goal 2 is pursue annexation of locations that can add value to the city by incorporated desired businesses or recreational facilities. So this would meet the incorporating of desired businesses if the proposal was to go forward, and would also provide the potential new tax revenues and local jobs. Obviously, this is an annexation. Just a bit of background, I know that this area and some other areas that are not currently in the city of Wooddale have been talked about annexation for a number of years. From the city council standpoint, the direction provided was that the city is not interested in force annexing properties, so any annexation would come in through the voluntary process, which is why we're here, one of the reasons why we're here this evening. And then just a couple more goals from the comprehensive plan. Goal 3, embrace small town charm. Objective 2, enhance the appearance and curb appeal of commercial corridors. Obviously, this would enhance a light industrial area. It's zoned I1. And then the last one, which is Goal 4, which would keep Wooddale diverse. Objective 2, manage development to create a balance of mixed land uses, promoting economic vitality, and a sustainable quality of life. I do apologize, I have one more. Goal 5, protect land values. Objective 3, encourage investment through redevelopment and by attracting new visitors and residents. This project is consistent with the city's stated strategy, balancing land use decisions to maintain a strong tax base and minimize property tax burden on residents. So, moving along, I'll probably go through a couple more sections of the staff report. I won't talk for too long, I promise. I just want to make sure that everybody has the information, and then we'll have an opportunity for the applicant to be heard, and then some questions and answers, because I know there's a lot of residents here. Moving along, it's a PUD, planned unit development request, is part of the request, and PUD is really, the requirement is that it's, for want of a better description, it's a give and take. So the applicant provides certain things that the city is requesting, i.e. additional right-of-way along Central Avenue, i.e. a sidewalk along Central Avenue. Those are the public benefits for a PUD. And through the PUD request, there are typically some deviations. So I'll go through those right now. So the applicant is requesting 6 deviations from the from the PUD, the Planned Unit Development, and I'll just go through these briefly. Number one would be the required parking spaces. So this property is very unique. It's surrounded by the city. It's not in the city at this time. Obviously, it would have to be annexed. So it, if annexed, would come in as residential zoning and have to be rezoned to I-1, which is light industrial. But it is also within the Thorndale Corridor overlay. So what complicates this is, so the deviation that the applicant is requesting is they're providing 144 off-street parking spaces. The Unified Development Code requires 111 parking spaces, so it meets the criteria. The Thorndale Corridor Plan, which I know some people know in this room and some people don't, is a future plan for the Thorndale Corridor and I-390, Elgin O'Hare, whatever we're going to call it. Changes in my mind every day. But that area has some additional restrictions. And what I'm getting at in a long-winded way is that the Thorndale Corridor requires 240 parking spaces for this use, which is excessive for a light industrial building. So this will come up a couple other times in the staff report. If annexed, it would be in the city, so it has to meet the city code, and then it also has to meet the more stringent Thorndale Corridor overlay. So one of the deviations is from 144 spaces they're providing down from 240, which the Thorndale Corridor is requesting, but importantly, the Unified Development Code requires 111. The second one is the service drive offset. The two service drives, or driveways as we are calling them, one here to the south, I apologize, a little carried away there. So one to the south, which is mainly for automobiles, and one to the north, which is mainly for trucks, because it's obviously a wider driveway. They do not line up with access drives across the street due to some site constraints. The third request, service and auto curb width. Driveway for both driveways have been proposed to be widened, and that's these two driveways here. We have had this request from other applicants, and it is consistent with those other requests. And number four, the Thorndale Corridor overlay, which again is different from the Unified Development Code, requires parking, surface parking zone on this side of the building. Well, as we can see, the driveway's here, and the driveway's here. We have a greenway buffer here. If we were to add, per the Thorndale Corridor overlay, parking to the east of the building here, it would shift the building over this way, therefore impacting the wetland buffer. So that is another deviation. Number five, elimination of build-to line requirement. The build-to line would require the building to essentially follow this line. My personal opinion is that the building is actually jogged. Sorry, got carried away again. Try and do a better job of staying on the slide. So the building is actually jogged, which actually makes the building more interesting, but it doesn't meet the build-to line, and I know we've had that request in other instances. And the last one is the elimination of the trash enclosure. Trash is proposed to be stored inside the building, so there's no need for the dumpster enclosure. Those are the deviations. Bear with me, I'm getting close to wrapping up. So then we have the standards for the PUD, which are in the staff report. All 17 of them. And the crib notes on the PUD standards are that the applicant and the proposed plan does meet those standards. The standards for the site plan review, which are 8. The proposed plan does meet those standards. And the standards for final plat, which there are 4, the standards are met by the proposed development. So With that, with all these issues, and I apologize, I know we have a couple more slides, and then I will, trust me, I will stop talking. Elevation, so this is the landscape plan. Obviously the building, this is central, again, parking lot, and loading dock. We have some, I know it's very hard to see, and I'm having a hard time seeing it. We have these plans at City Hall. If anyone would like to look at these closer, we have all the sets of plans. So obviously there's significant landscaping to the north. And the larger circles are shade trees. The smaller ones are shrubs and other plantings. Street trees, there's a requirement to have street trees along Central Avenue, which the applicant is meeting. Obviously, you have some pretty significant shade trees in front of the building, and quite a number of varied shrubs. You have a foundation planting along the base of the building because it is a large light industrial building. And then you have, in addition to that, you have some further landscaping to the south here, and I know there's probably some residents from the further south here. Really, the area, probably the, just jumping back real quick, the area, as you can see from this area, obviously the neighboring property, which is in the city, is right here, extends to this area here. I believe, maybe we have it, yes. So, as a point of reference, this is where the building is going. If there are any residents from the south there in this area, obviously there's a property in between. This is where the detention is in the wetland buffer, and then the building would be here. Then just very briefly, landscaping plan does exceed the code requirements. And then wrapping up, I'm sure everybody's happy about that. So findings, the following have been reviewed by, and I know we looked at a similar slide to this, city engineer, the building administrator, public works department, the development administrator, city attorney, and Wooddale Fire District. The plans have been approved with conditions. Some of the conditions are minor, and some of them are essentially notations on the plat, the things that come up in a complicated project such as this, and also on some smaller projects, and that's why it's documented in the recommendation. Those issues have to be addressed prior to City Council approval, and clearly that is prior to any kind of building permit being issued. And then, actually, I probably should have moved right ahead to the recommendation. Recommendation is approval because it's consistent with the UDO, Unified Development Code, and consistent with the 2018 City Comprehensive Plan. And conditions are suggested, substantial conformance with the staff memo, and then prior to issuance of a permit, the concrete sidewalk would be installed and inspected along Central Avenue. And as promised, that is all I have.
Does any member of the CDC have any questions for Mr. Cage? No. Is there a representative? Wow. So we really like you guys. Is there a representative of the applicant here this evening who'd like to make a presentation? Could you please go to the podium?
Please state your name and address.
Yes, Kevin Mahoney, 200 West Madison Street.
Mahoney, did you
yes.
say?
M-O-H-O-N-E-Y.
Thank you.
And Marilyn, could you swear in?
Yes. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can, please reference yourself with the applicant.
Sure. My name is Kevin Mahoney. I'm a vice president with Transwestern Development Company. Really appreciate the opportunity to meet with you guys tonight to introduce what we think is going to be a very transformative redevelopment for the city of Wooddale. Before we get into this project, and Ed did a great job of describing it, a little bit of background on our company. Transwestern Development Company, we're a diversified real estate development company. We specialize in all property types we develop throughout the country. We are a member of the Transwestern family of companies. You might have seen Transwestern's name around Chicago. It's a larger commercial services firm. We've got offices in 34 cities throughout the U.S. Me personally, I sit within our logistics group, and so we focus on the construction of state-of-the-art warehouse and distribution facilities. We have extensive experience in both larger bulk distribution facilities as well as smaller infill facilities like we are proposing today. In terms of our activity over the last several years, we've completed a little over 14 million square feet of industrial projects nationally. A lot of that's actually been here in Chicago. Our most recent project was over in Franklin Park. We completed a roughly 180,000 square foot building about 4 months ago. Basically took a contaminated, blighted 10-acre parcel, converted that to, again, a state-of-the-art distribution facility. We're certainly proud of the activity that we've had nationally over the past 4 years. I think we're especially proud of the extensive list of Fortune 500 companies we've been privileged to work with over the past 4 years. Some of the companies that we've worked with in the last few years, Michelin Tires, General Mills, Post Cereal, a lot of food companies, a lot of great companies that we've worked with and built facilities for. Moving on to the project, this is an opportunity that we think is going to greatly enhance an underutilized site that is not currently within the city's jurisdiction. It's going to add value to the city through the establishment of new tax revenues, and we're confident that's going to encourage the creation of new jobs for residents in the city. As noted in the staff memo, the property is currently within unincorporated DuPage County. It is surrounded by, as Ed said, existing Wooddale Industrial on the north, east, and south sides of the property. In total, roughly 9.6 acres. As Ed had mentioned, 20 individual residential lots. The 15 residential homes are all served by private well and septic systems. We've worked diligently over the last year to reach an agreement with all of those homeowners, and we successfully closed on all the properties at the end of February. Really, in its current state, the property provides limited benefit to the city presently, and as Ed noted, it is designated for business park industrial for the future land use map within the comprehensive plan. Moving further into the project, as Ed had outlined and as we outlined in these detailed plans that we submitted as part of our submittal, the annex property can accommodate construction of a state-of-the-art distribution facility, 159,000 square feet. This proposed project is designed to accommodate what we see as growing demand for modern and efficient distribution space, and especially within that, I would say, small to mid-size tenant base. That's really the core O'Hare tenant that we come across in our business. This is a segment of the market that's perpetually underserved, and it's largely due to incredible land constraints. That's especially true here in the city of Wooddale. If you look at real estate brokerage Colliers International, their Q1 2019 submarket report, the city of Wooddale had an industrial vacancy of less than 0.5%, 0.49%. That is an incredible number, and it's by far the lowest of all the submarkets in O'Hare. And again, it's indicative of the incredible demand and really the lack of subsequent space within this city. To look at it another way, if you're a company that's either located in Wooddale or you want to expand within Wooddale, you virtually have no options as of today. And so it is our hope that this project will help fill that void. From a design perspective, Ed, do you want to go back to the just the elevations? Might be helpful.
Bear with me a second.
I think let's go forward.
Forward, sorry.
Oh, by the way.
Operator error.
Thank you. From a design perspective, we've tried to be mindful of trends that we're seeing in the industry, and one of these trends is the consolidation of office and warehouse space, as we find users are trying to be more efficient with their real estate. As a result, you're seeing a greater focus on really higher image buildings, buildings that are meant to be a means for both employee attraction and retention. Much more different than the typical industrial buildings we probably saw 20, 30 years ago. So with that in mind, we have tried to place a greater focus on attractive building design with this project. The project is to be constructed of precast concrete, glass, steel. You saw the landscaping plan, very extensive landscaping plan, including that 20-foot landscaping buffer along the main thoroughfare of Central Avenue. Overall, it's a building that we're proud of. We hope it's a building that the city of Wooddale can be proud of, and ultimately think it's going to be a great natural addition to the city's industrial base. In terms of timing, subject to city approvals, we hope to commence demolition of the existing residential properties this summer. Vertical construction of the project is expected to take roughly 7 months, so we're hoping to be substantially complete with the building by January of 2020. In the interim period, and as we go through the approval process, we are working with Ed, the city fire department, police department, to provide access to these vacant homes for training activities. The opportunity to provide real-life training exercises it's really an incredible opportunity for these groups as we've started to talk to them and realize how unique it is. And so we're extremely happy to help with that venture, and we think it's only going to further help and enhance public safety within the city of Wooddale with this additional training, and it's just one of the many benefits that we see of this project for the city. So in closing, I'd just like to reiterate our excitement, our commitment to this project. We kindly ask for your support of the annexation and rezoning of this property to accommodate our redevelopment. As was noted in the staff memo, this is a project that is consistent with each goal and many of the objectives within the comprehensive plan. It would create increased walkability within the community with the construction of the pedestrian sidewalk along Central Avenue to connect existing properties. It will encourage job growth and expand opportunities for Wooddale residents to work here within the city of Wooddale. It will further economic development through the annexation of this property, which is currently, again, unincorporated, provides limited value to the city in its current state. As we talked about, attractive building design, extensive landscaping, really further enhance the city's reputation as the premier location for light industrial users. And then finally, it's a project that conforms to the future land use plans within the comprehensive plan, and it ultimately creates what we would consider a value-add annexation opportunity for this city with limited impact on public services required. With that, thank you again for your time. We look forward to working in partnership with the city on this project.
At this time, does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions of the applicant? Sir?
I've got one question for you. You're just a numbers guy. You're not, my contention is this building's going up 41 foot. Is that consistent with what we have as a norm?
Mr. Cage?
Yes, so some recent examples of new light industrial buildings that have gone up, I referenced them earlier. I believe there's 3 north of, I'm going to call it the Elgin O'Hare because that's what I like calling it. And they ranged from, I believe, 38 to 44. And I know that the city council, we did have some restrictions on height that was significantly lower than that. And I know that the city council did approve buildings up to 50 feet. So it's within those parameters.
Across the board?
Across the board, correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, so the clear height, which is the height within the building, is 32 feet. As Ed had mentioned, 41 feet goes up to here. I believe this is 39 feet. So the bulk of the building is 39 feet tall.
Are there any other questions of the commission of the applicant? Okay. At this time, thank you, sir. If you'd like to have a seat, we can open this up to any member of the public who has any questions or comments that they would like to make on this application. Ma'am, you know the drill. Could you go to the podium for purposes of this hearing, although we know you? Could you please introduce yourself again and be sworn under?
Your name and address, please. Shirley Marino?
Klitsch, yes.
Klitsch.
190 South Wooddale Road in Wooddale.
And Marilyn, could you please
Yes.
close her?
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. My question pertains to Wooddale Road and the trucks. The gentleman did mention that one side, I believe it's the south side of the building, would have truck loading docks. But I did not hear one word about the traffic on Wooddale Road with the trucks. Who would be repairing that, fixing that, widening that, doing that? Is the developer going to participate in some of that? Or is that all Wooddale taking care of that? And some of the neighboring streets, Central, Foster, and all those other smaller streets around there, are no trucks permitted.
Right.
So it would be definitely all on Wooddale Road. It's already a mess over there with the trains and all that. And I moved to Wooddale because it was a nice small town. And right after I moved in, we had 3 years of hell with the building of that boondoggle 390. And I've been watching what they're doing on Devon Avenue with all those big, huge buildings all the way down there, industrial parks, etc. And I see another one right here in our little town, and it's a little disturbing. I understand progress. I have nothing against progress. I understand tax revenue, understand it perfectly, but it's just a little heartbreaking. And no offense to people who want to build and make good and do good, but our small town is getting smaller and smaller. And I just want to know who's going to repair those roads and fix those roads, and what are they going to do about the surrounding roads? I mean, it all can't come down from the north side of Wooddale Road. So,
Mr. Cage,
what are we going to do
you
with
have
that?
an answer to the president?
I will do my best. I'll try and get back to a slide, which I don't know if it's going to go out as far as we need it to go. That's probably about as, so the applicant did submit a traffic study, and there is a truck routing scheme or a truck routing plan. The reason that the driveway for the trucks would be to the north is because the trucks are routed to the north, out to Wooddale Road, and then headed north from there.
North to where, Irving Park?
No.
North where? Or south, that'd be south.
Okay, so headed north on Central to the next street up, which, Seaver, thank you, and then headed west on Seaver, over here off the map, but to Wooddale Road, and then north on Wooddale Road to I-390 or the Elgin O'Hare.
Okay, well, my concern was the roads, because they seem too small for truck traffic. It's not like Devon Avenue. So that was my comment. I didn't know if the commission had said, I heard your whole presentation, I listened very carefully, I heard about the driveways and all that, but I did not, other than the fact of the loading docks for the trucks, I did not hear the word truck or traffic mentioned through that whole presentation. So knowing the streets around there, I thought I'd bring it up. Because I don't know if you all, I know at these public hearings, these things are all, the deals are already done, but I didn't know if, anything was considered, said about that, so.
Well, the applicant did submit and perform a traffic impact study, which any member of the commission, if you'd like to review the results of that, it is on page 5 of the 15-page report. Did you have any additional comment you wanted to make on traffic, Mr. Cage, in response?
Just other than the resident makes an excellent point. That's an area that I did not cover. I'm not a traffic engineer, but good news is we have a consultant traffic engineer who has reviewed the plan, and I was remiss in not mentioning that the truck traffic will come out and head north to Seaver, I believe it's Seaver, head over to Wooddale, and then north on Wooddale Road. That is a federal truck route. They are required to follow that direction. So it's an excellent point, and the good news is that the applicant did submit a traffic study to show where the trucks will go, and the office workers or logistic workers, and that they mentioned that the current streets as designed will handle the specifications. However, from the city standpoint, the overall comprehensive plan, which shows some areas within the industrial park, and I know some people are very familiar with, and I can't highlight it because my map's not big enough, but just up the road on Wooddale Road, there's a redevelopment happening there. At some point, to the residents' excellent point, is that the city will have to improve those streets. We know that. That's why it's in a TIF district. There is a budget for that. They're gonna, if we keep approving new developments with more trucks, we're gonna need better streets. And the city council knows that. There is a contingency for that. But the key is that the new developments that have truck traffic, and this is one of them, will have to follow that federally mandated route to the north.
Is there any other member of the public present tonight? Yes, sir. Please approach the podium, state your name, provide your address, and comment.
Raise your right hand, please. State your name and address.
Paul Wickland. I'm with Temco, 607 North Central here in Wooddale.
Would you spell your last name, please?
Wickland.
Thank you.
Could you place them in a record now?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to address this commission. I have a couple of questions, well, maybe 4 or 5, that would be either directed to staff or to the developer or possibly both. First question is, I spoke with the developer's broker, on or about the time of the last scheduled public hearing on this, which I know was postponed or continued. I'd ask the question, since Washington Street is a public roadway, has the developer purchased that from DuPage County? And his answer was, no, that's being worked on. Is that, I haven't seen or read anything about that. Can either staff or the developer's representative comment on that?
Mr. Wickland, if you have a series of questions, maybe if you ask your whole series, we could decide who would be best able to answer all of your questions.
Okay. My second question, this would be directed at the developer. I noticed in the packet it indicated, and of course it was also articulated here tonight, that no users have yet been identified. So this is in essence a spec building. I just like confirmation of that. Third question, there was also some mention here tonight of new jobs that were going to be brought to Wooddale. Knowing that it's difficult to know how many, especially if you haven't identified a user yet, I'm kind of curious as to what the developer's or staff's estimate of that is. I mean, I'm sure one comment could be, well, there's 144 parking spaces. Does that mean 144 jobs? I don't know. Fourth question, and this is directed at staff, specifically to Ed, since he wrote the memo. Ed, I'd like to know if 6 deviations is within the range of what would be considered normal. Since you are recommending that this be approved, is 6 deviations considered normal from staff's perspective? Next question, if I could see the elevation correctly, and I couldn't see it real well from where I was sitting, but it looked like there were roughly 40 truck docks. Is that correct? And if there is, I'm kind of curious as to how many trucks would be entering and leaving the facility on a daily basis, and that of course leads to the question about the traffic impact study, which I haven't seen, and I can certainly put through a FOIA request. I'd like to see it. But on page 5 of the write-up, Ed, it indicates that the proposed development will generate a low volume of traffic during the peak hours and will have low traffic impact on the surrounding roadway network. That seems to be inconsistent with what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, if I'm correct about this. So I don't know if you'd have a further comment on that. Maybe the answer to my question would be in the traffic impact study. I believe that's all I have.
Thank you.
Well, you'll have the opportunity if you just want to stand there. Mr. Kitch, are you able to answer the questions, or should we turn to the applicant?
I'll take a go at a few of them. The Washington Road purchase, it's a DuPage County road. So that's something that the applicant would discuss with the DuPage County, so I can't answer that, but it's
Well,
not...
has a purchase been consummated at this point, to your knowledge?
Again, it's a DuPage County road. It's not something that the city is familiar with, so I can't answer that. at
Can
this
we
moment
direct
in
that
time.
to the developer? Or can the developer answer that question?
If the applicant has the answer.
My understanding is a township road, so it'll be part of the annexation process, and that will all be through this city approval process. But could certainly give you more information on that.
Well, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, is DuPage County going to donate that to the project?
Typically, Mr. Wicklund, if the city were to annex the property and the road existed, then the applicant, as the owner of all of the land abutting the road, could ask that the city vacate the road. There's, Illinois law provides for that.
Okay. Which means it comes free of charge. Is that true?
The city can make any, that's a negotiation between the city and the adjacent landowners. To Mr. Wicklund's next question.
Well, when you
relative-
say, I'm confused. When you say the adjacent landowners, the properties, the residential properties have been sold to the applicant.
Correct.
So who's the adjacent landowner?
The applicant.
Okay, thank you.
The next question was relative to, is it a spec building?
Do you want to answer that?
It would be best because you'd be on
Yeah, I can
the.
address it to your...
Sure.
Excuse me, thank you. Yes, as of today, this is a speculative project, so out of respect for this approval process, we have not commenced marketing for this project. I think that would have been a little presumptuous. We still remain incredibly confident with the market dynamics in O'Hare for all the reasons that I discussed earlier. This remains the most desirable submarket in all of O'Hare. I think that's reflective in the leasing activity that you've seen and some of the most recent spec buildings that have gone up in the city. 1235 Middle, 1555 Middle, 1500 Michael, all completed last year, all 100% leased, which is why we have 0.5% vacancy in this market. So again, reflective of the incredible demand and lack of supply, and so assuming we can get through this process successfully, we will engage a full marketing process and are very confident in our ability to attract tenants to this building.
Do you have an estimate on the number of new jobs that might be created?
Yes, on a construction perspective, we would guess right around 75 construction jobs. Obviously, given a spec building, understanding the full-time employees from a potential tenant is kind of variable. Industry standards that we see for some of these smaller, more infill facilities, maybe you're looking at one job per 2,500 square feet. So potentially looking, 75 jobs. Obviously, we've got parking up to 144, so certainly could accommodate something on that in that range.
The next question was relative to deviations. Somebody will skip that one as long as you're still at the microphone. Relative to the traffic impact study, Mr. Wicklund's brought out a point relative to the number of truck docks and the traffic impact study relative to whether there are in fact that many truck docks and how that the number of docks impacted the traffic impact study.
Yeah, so there's 38 docks. As you can see in the elevations, the traffic impact study that we submitted as part of this application process was based on this design. All of the calculations were based off of what a typical industrial building would produce in terms of truck traffic. So I'm not a traffic expert. I'm going to defer a lot of the detail to the actual impact study itself. But yeah, I think the main takeaway is really what we gleaned from it was based off of this building that we're proposing. It was based off of market standards. It was reviewed by our traffic study, our traffic engineer, the city's traffic engineer, and really the ultimate takeaway was that the project is going to generate a low volume of traffic at peak travel hours. So I'd be happy to share the traffic study if you'd like to see that. I know that's public and as part of our submittal.
Well, does the traffic study indicate what I'd asked, which council you left out, was do we have an estimate of the number of trucks that will enter and exit on any given day?
Yes, that is part of the calculations that are run, and that's something that our traffic engineer makes a determination, and the city engineer, traffic engineer confirms. Yeah.
And then the last question, Mr. Cage, was more of a staff question. 6 deviations, is that typical? Usual?
So, to answer that question, all applications are different. In the time that I've been here, approximately 5 years, we've had requests that have 1 or 2 deviations. We've had requests that have 10, 11, 12. Is it consistent? It's hard to say because each development is different. I would point out of the 6 deviations requested, 1 is the elimination of a trash enclosure. So that one is fairly straightforward as they're keeping the trash inside the building. And then as it's a planned unit development, typically what staff does is if the applicant is looking for a deviation, a good example is the build-to line. So if the build-to line is a consistent line that the applicant's not meeting, then we look for other things like the greenway buffer, which the applicant has proposed along Central Avenue. So one offsets the other. And then one of the other ones that come to mind are the service and auto curb cut width. I think certainly every light industrial building development that has been in through this process since I've been here have all requested and received driveway width deviations or variations.
Mr. Wickland, did you have any follow-up?
No, as a side comment, I won't say I find the answer satisfactory, but we don't need to go into that any further at this point.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public who'd like? Yes, sir, please approach the podium, state your name, address.
Would you raise your right hand, please, and state your name and address?
My name is Harvey Hoyer, 17W034 Bryn Mawr.
And would you spell your last name? I'm sorry.
Hoyer.
Thank you.
The information that we received this evening is...
Could we wait just a moment?
Pardon?
Yes.
Place lender open.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
The
you.
information we received this evening has been pretty interesting. I think it'll be a great project. My question to the commission is, under the circumstances that the property is not part of Wooddale, it's still DuPage County property, can the commission approve or disapprove anything to do with this project at this time until after the property is annexed?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. Any recommendation of this body is a recommendation only to the city council, and anything having to do with the zoning or the planning and development that is sought would be conditioned upon successful annexation of the property. So the city council first would have to determine to annex.
I see.
If the city council doesn't annex, then this property remains in DuPage County.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present this evening who'd like to make a comment on this application? Okay, seeing no other member of the public, this is the opportunity for the applicant. Should you like to make any closing remarks? We'll pass on that. Does any member of the Community Development Commission at this time have any questions for the applicant?
May I just ask if everybody is in attendance has signed the attendance record, please?
Having no additional testimony, I'll now close the public hearing for case number 2019-CDC-01. We will now proceed into the deliberation of the merits of this request. Commissioners, do you have any discussion about this request? All right, there being no further discussion, I'm looking for a motion.
There is, page 15 of the staff report, there is a recommended motion that staff brings before you for your consideration.
I'll make a motion. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed special use planned unit development, final plat of subdivision and major site plan reviews meets the standards of approval and is consistent with the UDO and comprehensive plan. And therefore, I move the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of facts included within the staff memo as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of case number 2019-CDC-01, subject to the following conditions. 1, the special use planned unit development, final plat of subdivision, and major site plan review shall substantially conform to the staff memo dated May 20th, 2019, and the attached exhibits, except as such plans may be modified to meet city code requirements. Where deviations to the codes have not been requested as part of this approval, the existing codes must be met as applied at the time of permit application. 2, prior to the assurance of the certificate of occupancy, the concrete sidewalk along the western side of Central Avenue shall be installed and inspected by the City of Wooddale.
We need a second, please.
Second.
All right, there'll be a motion to recommend approval and a second made. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Dem-
Reminder, a yes vote is to recommend approval, and a no vote will recommend denial.
Mr. Damasco?
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek?
Yes.
Mr. St. Marie?
Yes.
Mr. Vant?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
The motion to recommend approval of the proposed rezoning special use plan unit development, final plat of subdivision, and major site plan review for the redevelopment of Washington Street Road carries. Next, staff liaison report. Is there any report tonight?
Staff did not plan on one.
Very good. If that's the case, I would consider a motion for adjournment, if one would be made.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All agree?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We will close this meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming.